And we're continuing to chug right along and get excited because we're more than halfway through. We've come up with our terms, brainstormed alternatives, and then worked through the roots of those words to make sure we're asking the database for various spellings and tenses. But so far, all we have is a big old list of words. It's time to make some connections. To show you this, we're going to reverse engineer it by showing you the whole process and then breaking it down. Let's start with a simple research issue. Do children learn better if they eat breakfast? Seems pretty simple, right? Let's work through the process. What are the key terms? I think the key terms are children, learn, and breakfast. Great, let's work to find some alternatives. Thinking both broadly and narrowly, we can come up with a fairly comprehensive list. Then we can look at each of these and think about if we could root any of them down to make sure we catch all the variations. Like children, we could root down to child so that we catch both child and children, understanding that we would also catch words like childlike and childhood. We could do the same with learn to catch learns, learning, learnt, and so on. And this is where we've gotten to, a big list of words. Each of these terms, though, is really a concept in our search, and we need to be able to tell the database what sort of relationship they have to one another. For example, take the concept of children. I need to tell the database I would take any of these words, so I'm going to group them together in parentheses with an or. If the database returns any of these words, then the concept of children will be represented. Our next concept is learn, so we're going to group those words together as well. And same with breakfast. We want breakfast or the word food, but only food that you have in the morning. We can't search for each concept separately and then comb through all to find related ones. We now need to connect those concepts to tell the database you want it to return resources related to all three concepts. To do that, we add a connector between the concepts, like the word and. You want children or its variations and the concept of learning in the same paragraph as breakfast or morning meals. This here is your basic search string, and it's the building block for how we will work with our legal databases throughout the semester. Makes complete sense, right? Okay, let's break it down a little bit. One of the most common connectors is and. And is going to narrow your search by telling your database that you only want to see documents that contain both concepts. For instance, if we were researching employment discrimination, we want documents that contain both those words. Great, right? Just remember, if you were to run the search employment and discrimination, the database will return results that have both words anywhere in the document. It could be the first word and the last word, and not actually have anything to do with each other. So, if you're getting too many results, you might want to play around with that connection and narrow it even further, like by changing it to within the same paragraph. Now you're telling the database you want those words even more closely related. Or maybe you want only those documents that contain both words within the same sentence. That narrows your results even further. Moving on to or. This connector will broaden your search by telling the database you would take either or all of these words. This is a good one to use when you have alternatives within your concept, like minor or child or infant. You would take any of those because they essentially mean the same thing. A connector that can be very useful, but only in the right circumstance, is not. Not narrows your search by telling the database, I want this word, but I want to exclude any documents that have this other word. For instance, I want resources that talk about social media, but I don't want to hear about Twitter. This can be useful for those concepts that could be misinterpreted by the database. Remember, the database works with the context you give it, but be careful as you are being extremely specific, and the database doesn't know how to guess about what you really mean, so it will do exactly what you say. So this is where we start to really play. Start simple by connecting one or two concepts and see if you can hone in on even more specific results by playing with your proximity connectors. Then keep playing around a lot. You may try a search 15 different ways before you start getting results that make sense for what you need. This is normal. I cannot stress that enough. You will get better with practice, but it takes exactly that, practice. We'll work on it all semester, and trust me when I say I'm still working on it to this day, and it's my full-time job. Let's give it a shot, shall we?